November 6th, 2013. Swansea, Massachusetts. A police lieutenant walks into the station and tries to open a routine arrest file. A ransom message fills the screen. Every file on the network, arrest records, dispatch logs, evidence photos, motor vehicle reports, encrypted. A countdown clock ticks in the corner. They call the FBI. They call the state police. They call a private forensics firm. Each one runs their best tools against the encryption. Each one comes back with the same answer: unbreakable. The countdown keeps ticking. 4 days later, the police department of a small American town does what police departments are not supposed to do. They pay $750 in Bitcoin to a wallet they cannot trace, controlled by a person they cannot identify, in a country they cannot reach. The institution that arrests criminals just paid one. 11 years later, the man who took their money is still free. His bounty is still active. His most wanted poster is still up. So what does it take to defeat the most powerful law enforcement agency on Earth? Not for a week, not for a year, but for over a decade. And who does it? Pittsburgh, 2009. FBI Special Agent Keith Mularski opens an investigation into a wave of bank fraud he doesn't fully understand yet. Mularski is former counterintelligence, a man who once infiltrated the world's largest carding forum by posing as a Polish administrator called Master Splinter. He ran that forum undercover for 2 years. Watched criminals confess their methods in real time, never suspecting the admin taking their confessions was FBI. He has spent his entire career living inside the cybercrime underground. Now something new is crossing his desk, as across the eastern United States are losing money overnight. Wire transfers they never authorized, draining accounts between midnight and dawn. A Pennsylvania charity watches $700,000 disappear in a single transaction. Money earmarked for community programs, gone before anyone unlocks the office door Monday morning. A trucking company loses its entire weekly payroll. Drivers show up expecting paychecks. The accounts are empty. Their families don't eat that week. At first, Mularski's team thinks they're looking at isolated incidents. Then the case files start stacking up. Dozens of victims, then hundreds. The pattern is always the same. Every theft passes through money mules, unwitting Americans recruited by fake job postings promising easy money for payment processing. They receive the stolen funds into personal accounts, keep a small percentage, then wire the remainder to Eastern Europe. By the time the victim bank notices the fraud, the money has crossed 3 borders. It's in Ukraine, it's dust. The trail leads Mularski to a piece of malware called Zeus, a keylogger that records every password, every bank login, every keystroke typed on an infected computer. Zeus captures credentials silently and transmits them to whoever deployed it. But Zeus is just a tool, sold on underground forums to anyone with a few $1,000s. Hundreds of criminals across the world use different versions of it. The FBI isn't hunting one person. They're hunting an entire customer base. Then one handle keeps surfacing. On the most exclusive, invitation-only Russian-language forums. Lucky 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Also known as Slavic, also polling soon. He doesn't use Zeus. He didn't buy it from someone else. He wrote it. Every line of code. Built the architecture. Designed the distribution method. By 25, he's already a celebrity in the Russian-speaking cybercrime underground. The architect behind the most effective banking Trojan ever created. Here's what you need to understand about Slavic. He didn't come from Moscow's tech elite. He came from Anapa, a sleepy resort town on the Black Sea where the main industries are tourism and fishing. No venture capital scene, no tech incubator. Just a kid with a computer and a conviction that the legitimate world would never reward what he could do. In the forums, he was meticulous, paranoid, obsessively private. He never bragged about lifestyle, never flashed money. He talked only about the code. Other hackers sold sloppy kits for quick cash, Slavic engineered systems. He saw banking infrastructure the way an architect sees a building. Every load-bearing wall, every structural weakness, every point where pressure could bring the whole thing down. Then the architect does something Mularski didn't predict. Around 2011, he stops selling, pulls Zeus from the open market entirely, vanishes from the forums where he once held court. He's building something new, something he will never sell, never share with outsiders, something exclusively for himself and a hand-picked inner circle of elite criminals he calls the Business Club. The new tool is Game Over Zeus, and unlike its predecessor, it has no central command server, no single point of failure. Every infected machine connects directly to every other infected machine in a peer-to-peer mesh, the same structural principle that makes BitTorrent impossible to shut down. Apply that to a criminal network and you get a weapon no playbook in law enforcement was designed to fight. You cannot kill Game Over Zeus by cutting off the head. There is no head. To destroy it, you would need to simultaneously sever hundreds of thousands of connections across dozens of countries at the exact same moment. Nobody has ever attempted anything like that. By 2013, Malarski and the FBI grasped the full scale of what they're facing. Game over. Zeus controls between 500,000 and 1 million computers worldwide. It is draining more than $100 million from American victims. Hospitals locked out of patient records, school districts losing operating funds, small businesses watching lifetimes of work evaporate overnight. And riding the same botnet is CryptoLocker, the ransomware that locks organizations out of their own files and demands Bitcoin payment for the key. The Swansea Police Department was one of thousands. The architect behind all of it remains a ghost. Malarski has handles. He has code samples. He has no face. Until a tipster delivers a single email address, and with it, the thread that unravels everything. FBI analysts spend weeks pulling that thread. They cross-reference the IP address that logged into that email account with the IP address administering the botnet's core infrastructure. Through layers of VPNs, through years of obsessive operational security, they trace connections across continents, eliminate false leads, and map login patterns spanning months. Then they find it. One login session, where both connections, the personal email and the botnet's command layer, originated from the same source. Thousands of careful days. One careless moment. A single overlap in a sea of paranoid discipline. They have a name. Evgeny Mikhailovich Bogachev. Born October 28, 1983. Last known address, Anapa, Russia. A coastal city on the Black Sea. He lives with his wife and 2 children. He owns a Bengal cat, raccoon-eyed, shaven-headed, looking less like a criminal mastermind and more like a mid-level developer at a regional tech firm. The FBI had a name, a face, an address. They pinned his photo to the caseboard in Pittsburgh and stared at a man they could see, but never arrest. Because Anapa sat on the coast of a country that does not extradite its citizens to the United States. Not for any crime, not under any circumstances. The FBI could identify Bogachev down to his cat's breed. They could not lay a finger on him. And that was only the first wall. And there were many more. Malarski and the Pittsburgh U.S. Attorney's Office make a decision. If they cannot extradite the man, they'll do something that has never been attempted at this scale. Seize the network itself. Capture Bogachev's botnet from him while he sleeps. Use American courts to take legal ownership of a criminal infrastructure spanning 1 million machines in dozens of countries. Game over. Zeus uses a domain generation algorithm, a piece of code that creates between 1,000 and 10,000 new web addresses every single day. These are the addresses infected machines use to phone home, to receive fresh instructions from Bogachev, to block communication between the botnet and its master. The FBI would need to control every possible domain the algorithm could generate. They petition a federal judge for authority to pre-register every single one. 6 months of domains. In advance. No court has ever granted anything like it. The judge signs off. They now own the future. But domains alone won't kill a peer-to-peer network. The FBI needs to physically seize the proxy servers Bogachev uses as backup communication channels, servers scattered across 12 countries. That means coalition. Malarski and federal prosecutors spend 2 years building an unprecedented international cybercrime partnership. Operation Tovar will ultimately require Europol, the UK's national crime agency. law enforcement in Canada, France, Germany, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Ukraine. Plus private cybersecurity firms, CrowdStrike, Dell SecureWorks, Symantec, Trend Micro, McAfee, Fox IT. Plus academic researchers from VU Amsterdam and Saarland University. A coalition spanning 11 countries and more than 20 private institutions. The largest coordinated cyber takedown ever attempted. The plan, simultaneously, on the same day, across 11 countries, seize every known command proxy at the same minute. Reroute every infected machine on the planet to an FBI-controlled sinkhole server before Bogachev wakes up and realizes what's happening. Cut him off from his own creation in one synchronized strike. One shot. No second chance. If it fails, Bogachev will know they're coming. He'll never leave himself this exposed again. Then, a near disaster almost destroys everything. A McAfee blog post announcing details of the operation goes live 4 days early. A scheduling error. Someone clicked publish instead of draft. The post is yanked within hours, but the damage could be total. If Bogachev is reading the cybersecurity blogs his team monitors daily, and they monitor them obsessively, he will see it. He will move his servers. He will rebuild the network on new infrastructure overnight. 2 years of work. Tens of millions of dollars, 11 international partnerships. All of it potentially vaporized by one premature click. The FBI has 48 hours to decide. Launch early before Bogachev can react, or abort and start over, hoping he didn't see the post. 48 hours pass with no sudden migration of servers, no scrambled infrastructure, no sign that Bogachev noticed. They go. On the morning of May 30th, 2014, in 11 countries, at the same coordinated moment, federal agents launched the strike. They had 4 hours to sever a billion-dollar criminal network from its architect, and 4 hours to find out if one blog post had already doomed them. Ukrainian authorities raid data centers in Kiev and Donetsk, pulling server racks from their housings while technicians stand with hands raised. German federal police breach facilities in Frankfurt. Dutch teams strike in Amsterdam. At FBI headquarters in Pittsburgh, Malarski's team watches a wall of monitors as connection after connection drops. Green dots turning red across a world map. The botnet is bleeding out. The sinkhole begins absorbing infected machines. Within hours, hundreds of thousands of compromised computers worldwide stop talking to Bogachev's infrastructure and start talking to FBI-controlled servers instead. The botnet is being amputated from its operator in real time. Every minute his reach shrinks. His empire contracts. His control dissolves. 45 minutes in, the business club's internal communications light up with panic. Russian text scrolling fast. Bogachev knows. They attempt a last-ditch defensive maneuver, pushing out one final emergency backup of their entire operational database to a safe server before the FBI can seize it. Every victim credential, every banking login, every crypto locker encryption key. If they can save that data, they can rebuild everything. The FBI is already inside that communications pipe. They intercept the backup mid-flight, snatch it from the wire before it reaches its destination. In that single interception, they recover Bogachev's complete victim database, including the CryptoLocker decryption keys. Hundreds of thousands of CryptoLocker victims who lost family photos, medical records, years of irreplaceable data will eventually be able to recover their files for free through a tool the FBI's partners build on top of that haul. But that wasn't all. By Sunday, June 1st, Operation Tover is complete. Game Over Zeus is severed from its architect. The Department of Justice unseals a 14-count federal indictment against Evgeny Mikhailovich Bogachev. Pittsburgh holds a press conference. The U.S. Attorney's Office calls it the most decisive cybercrime operation they've ever executed. International headlines echo the triumph. For 5 weeks, the world believes it worked. Then, in early July, the cybersecurity firm Malcovery flags something circulating in the wild. A new piece of malware spreading through email attachments. They reverse engineer it. Examine the code structure, compare it against known samples. 90% of the code is identical to Game Over Zeus. Bogachev is back. operating from the same address in Anapa with new architecture, rebuilding what the FBI just spent 2 years destroying. He'd watched them kill his network. He'd lost his database. And within 5 weeks, he was operational again. Same apartment, same coast, same man. The agents who'd spent 2 years building Operation Tovar watched new infection dots bloom across the same map they'd just cleared. 11 countries, 2 years of preparation, tens of millions of dollars, and it bought the FBI 35 days. Operation Tovar had killed the network. It could not touch the architect, and the architect could rebuild from the same apartment, on the same coast, behind the same border that treats extradition as a constitutional impossibility. So in February 2015, the Department of Justice did something it had never done before for a cyber criminal. They put a price on his head. February 24th, 2015. Assistant Attorney General Leslie Caldwell stands at a podium in Washington and announces a reward. $3 million for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Evgeny Mikhailovich Bogachev, the largest bounty ever offered for a cyber criminal in United States history. For context, the FBI's bounty for the leader of the Sinaloa cartel's enforcement wing was $5 million. Bogachev sits in the same tier as men who dissolve bodies in acid barrels. He is a 31-year-old programmer who lives with a cat. The bounty is designed to turn loyalty into a price tag. It worked on Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. It worked on Saddam Hussein's sons. It is built to make someone in the fugitive's orbit, a friend, a neighbor, a business partner, decide the target is worth more as a commodity than as a companion. But Bogachev isn't hiding. He is in Anapa, same address listed on the original FBI Most Wanted poster. Photos surface online. Him aboard his yacht on the Black Sea, with his wife and his cat. He is not in a bunker, not in disguise, not looking over his shoulder. He is on vacation, and the most powerful law enforcement agency on Earth is watching him enjoy it. The FBI tracks his European properties. They flag his passport aliases. 3 different passports under 3 different names, at cooperative border crossings and wait for the one mistake. A vacation outside Russian territory. A flight that lands in a country willing to hand him over. A single misstep that places him somewhere the FBI's jurisdiction can reach. Year after year after year, the mistake never comes. Not once in 11 years. Because Bogachev is not simply protected by Russian law forbidding extradition. He is protected by something the FBI didn't fully understand until they dug deeper into their own seized data. Something that, when American intelligence officials finally saw it, reframed everything. If you're enjoying this story, hit subscribe. It tells me you want more stories about people the system was never built to catch. Because what comes next is the part of this story almost nobody knows. In late 2014, while analysts were still processing the massive haul from Operation Tovar, a researcher at the Dutch cybersecurity firm Fox IT noticed something buried in the botnet's traffic logs. Something that had nothing to do with stealing money, nothing to do with ransomware or bank fraud or wire transfers. The FBI hadn't just been chasing a criminal. They had been chasing something far more dangerous. Late 2014, a windowless office in the Netherlands. A Fox IT analyst sits hunched over a workstation, scrolling through terabytes of traffic logs recovered from Operation Tovar. He's been at this for weeks, cataloging the botnet's communication patterns, mapping the flow of stolen banking credentials. Then he stops scrolling. A search query blinks on his screen that has nothing to do with money. Top secret. Department of Defense. Classified. He runs a broader filter. More queries surface. Names of specific military installations. Defense contractor keywords. Intelligence agency acronyms. Game Over Zeus, in addition to running its standard banking credential theft, was simultaneously executing a second set of searches on infected machines. Searches that were not financial. The botnet wasn't just stealing money. It was hunting intelligence on hundreds of thousands of infected computers worldwide, including computers inside the United States government. The analyst flags his supervisor. Within days, the finding reaches American intelligence channels. Then the geographic pattern emerges. Researchers find that Bogachev's network was specifically targeting machines in Georgia, Turkey, Syria and Ukraine, countries that share borders or active geopolitical conflicts with Russia. The search activity spiked at precise, non-random moments tied to real-world military operations. Before Russia's 2014 invasion of Crimea, the network was running queries through Ukrainian government computers. Before operations in Syria, Turkish military networks were being scanned. The timing was not coincidental. It was operational. Someone was using the world's most prolific criminal botnet as a geopolitical listening device. John Carlin, the former Assistant Attorney General for National Security, articulated the conclusion American intelligence reached. In a 60 Minutes investigation, he confirmed what the data proved. Bogachev's botnet was being used by Russian intelligence as a passive distributed espionage platform. The same infected machines that stole money from American small businesses were simultaneously functioning as listening posts for Moscow. A dossier compiled by the Ukrainian Interior Ministry and shared with the FBI states it directly. Bogachev works under the supervision of a special unit of the FSB. He wasn't a fugitive being sheltered as a diplomatic courtesy. He was a resource being protected because he was operationally necessary. The FSB had seen what his network could do, 1 million infected machines capable of searching any hard drive on the planet, and made him an offer. Keep stealing. Keep every dollar. And in exchange, run our queries too. This is why the FBI will never get him. Russia doesn't refuse extradition because Bogachev is a citizen they're constitutionally obligated to protect. Russia refuses because handing him over would mean surrendering an active intelligence asset to the country he's been spying on. The same code that locked up the Swansea Police Department for $750 was simultaneously helping Moscow prepare for the invasion of Crimea. The FBI isn't losing because Bogachev is cleverer than their best agents. They're losing because he sits behind the same wall that shields every FSB officer in Moscow. The $3 million bounty will never be collected, because no one in his orbit can claim it without crossing Russian intelligence, and you don't betray the FSB for any number of zeros. The man who locked an American police department out of its own files for $750 went on to help a nuclear power conduct intelligence operations against 3 of its neighbors. He's still in Anapa. The most wanted poster is still up, the bounty is still active, and none of that will change unless Russia decides to surrender him, which Russia will never do. Above a certain threshold of utility to a sovereign state, the law stops applying. Bogachev found that threshold 11 years ago, which forces one uncomfortable question. If a single programmer in a Russian beach town can place himself permanently above American justice by making himself useful to Moscow, how many others are doing the same thing right now, on networks we haven't found yet, in countries that will never extradite them? For making yourself an idea, you can check the story of Semyon Mogilevich, which is even more untouchable.